Why are we talking?
I have a deal for you. You receive full pardon for every criminal action you've committed in the United States. It was an accident. About an hour ago, a small jet went down inside New York City. The president was on board.
President of what?
That's not funny, Plisskey. You go in, find the president, bring him out in 24 hours, and you're a free man.
24 hours, huh?
I'm making you an offer.
Bullshit.
Straight, just like I said.
I'll think about it.
No time. Give me an answer.
Get a new president.
Welcome to Flick Flop's Cult Classics, the podcast where we dive feet first into the wild and wonderful world of films that have earned cult status. Each episode, we'll flip the script on cinema's most intriguing and unconventional films, exploring the hidden gems and eccentric creations that have captured the hearts of dedicated fans. From the bizarre to the brilliant, these are the movies that may have flopped at the box office but soared in the cult scene. So grab your popcorn and get ready to challenge your movie taste. This is Flick Flop's Cult Classics. This week we discuss Escape from New York, the 1981 sci-fi action film from John Carpenter starring Kurt Russell. In the movie, we learned that in the late 80s, the U.S. went in the crapper. Well, I mean, that's kind of... Anyway.
Wait a minute. That's when it happened?
At some point. And made Manhattan Island a maximum security prison. When in 1997, the president's plane crashes there, they send in Russell, a convicted bank robber named Snake Pliskin. Great name, to go in and rescue him for a full pardon. Are we card-carrying compatriots of the cult classic created by Carpenter? Find out in this episode of Flick Flops Cult Classics.
Cult Classics.
All right.
I Escape from New York, as you said, 1981, Gary.
1981.
Let's see. Let's go over some numbers here right quick. Rotten Tomatoes has this thing sitting at 88 with the critics, 77 with the audience. That seems about right. I thought the audience actually might have had this a little higher than 77, but whatevs.
Yeah.
The budget for this was $6 million. So that's a good chunk of change there in 1981. Box office numbers I've seen are 25.2 million. I don't know what that adjusts for in 2024 numbers, but that's what it is. This was written by Nick Castle and John Carpenter, but Nick Castle would be known for such films as August Rush and Resurrection of Bronco Billy, better known as a director of classic films like The Last Starfighter, Dennis the Menace, Major Payne, and Mr. Wrong. That's what Nick Castle would be known for. And of course, Carpenter known for Halloween, The Fog, Assault on Precinct 13, and Thing. Christine Starman, Big Trouble in Little China, They Live, and it goes on and on. Carpenter is a goddamn legend. Sorry. You could edit that. And he, of course, Carpenter directed this film. Now, I love Carpenter for Halloween. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say that up front. I love Halloween. The Fog, I'm just doing a little, I'm scatting here. I did a little just looking at his numbers. The Fog actually gets really bad reviews, and I need to go back and rewatch that. Maybe we should add that to our list, Gary. I somewhat remember the film, but then when I started reading, I was like, maybe I don't remember this film. So
get inside and lock your doors. Close your windows. There's something in the fog. John Carpenter's The Fog, starring Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Houseman, Janet Leigh as Kathy Williams, and Hal Holbrook as Father Malone. The Fog. What you can't see won't hurt you. It will kill you. Between midnight and 1, it will find you.
You know, what would be interesting to do would be to go back and watch, a catalog of films by a particular director.
Dude, I mean, let's do John Carpenter. Because you got Assault on Precinct 13, The Thing, Christine, which I didn't know he did. Of course, we're both King fans.
I just recently watched They Live, maybe a year ago again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that would be fun. I mean, there's many people we could do that with. That would be a blast. But anyway, so this one is Escape from New York. And
yes.
That's our numbers. So
that's our numbers. We can go into the ratings at this point.
Well, let's save those to the end. I think because we're not doing ratings. We're doing whether we're cult members.
Oh, that's right. We're not doing ratings. We're
yeah. So
members.
we'll call it. This is our discussion moment. But
I'm just trying to make Gary edit more stuff
thank you.
because he doesn't have enough stuff to do in his life.
Wish I could make a weird, say a weird thing right now that would be totally out of context, and then throw that in the middle. So be like, what did he edit right there? But I got nothing. Anyway, you're probably hearing all of this.
Like pumpkin spice. What? You're crazy. I have a critic's review here, Gary.
Okay, I didn't actually pull any for this, so I'm curious to see what you came up with.
Yeah, I got some notes. We can talk, and you can just ramble on with me. The critics review on this I chose Marianne Johansson from a site called Flick Philosopher, which I thought was fun because she does it with F, not a PH. So kudos to you, Marianne Johansson. This is her review, and I will say it'll tip my hat to which way I'm leaning, but I agree with her on this. And this is something you and I, when we first started this podcast, Gary, we talked about. This was one of the catalysts for why we started doing this. So here's her review.
Oh,
Quote,
boy. Okay.
I remember it being a lot better than it actually is. So if you have fond memories of a long ago viewing of Escape from New York, I'd suggest not ruining them by revisiting this film again. End quote. So we talked about stuff like, remember we talked about watching films with our 2024 eyes or 2023 eyes, and how we thought something was great. When you watch it back, you're like, oh God, this film's horrible.
Yeah.
Now I don't necessarily think this film was horrible, but I agreed with her. And then it's funny, when I started watching this, I realized I had actually watched this within the past year and didn't realize it when we talked about doing this film again.
Oh, really?
Because I'm watching, I was like, man, this looks really familiar. Not like familiar from when I watched it, say 30 years ago. Like, I've seen this recently and I can't remember when I watched it. Because I remember making fun of the same shots. I was like, I've talked about this to myself. So here's my notes.
Okay.
Carpenter originally wrote the screenplay for Escape from New York in 1976 in the aftermath of Nixon's Watergate scandal. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. The film's financial backing people preferred Charles Bronson, Tommy Lee Jones, or Chuck Norris to play the role of Snake Pliskin to Carpenter's choice of Kurt Russell, who was trying to overcome the lightweight screen image conveyed by his roles in several of the Disney films. So, but I think Kurt Russell was great for this.
Yeah.
I personally, I mean, I could see Chuck Norris, but Charles Bronson, what I read, they said that he felt Charles Bronson was A, too old to play the character, and B, Carpenter had said, he goes, if I have someone like Chuck or Charles Bronson on the set, I felt that he would take over the set and I would lose control of my set because he's such a veteran actor.
Yeah.
He said that's why part of the reason he didn't want Charles Bronson. This film was shot in East St. Louis, which was interesting because they said they were trying to find a city that looked like burned out future New York.
Sorry, St. Louis.
East St. Louis looked in 1981 looked like a burned out New York City. And they actually said that he convinced the city to shut the power off from midnight till 6 a.m. while they were shooting for the whole block. So if you were living there, they just killed the power until 6 a.m.
Wow.
I know. I mean, I'm sure they probably weren't really disrupted in East St. Louis. Like, yeah, it sounds about right. So let's see. What else do I got? Okay, so I my note is this, and you may pull this up and read some of the names, Gary.
Yeah, I've got some names.
This is a phenomenally great cast of actors.
Yeah.
However, I think the acting was very flat and boring, and it looked very amateur to me. A lot of the acting did. And I'll say specifically, I thought Harry Dean Stanton's character was it looked like he was either high or just didn't care about what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I hate that because I think he's a pretty decent actor.
Mm-hmm.
Ernest Borgnine I thought was pretty funny. I enjoyed his character.
Mm-hmm.
But who is it? Do you have the list in front of you, Gary? Who is it that played the main, like the police, the guy who
legendary Lee Van Cleef.
Van Cleef. I didn't think he was good. And I'm sorry. I mean, I'm probably offending some people. I'm like, I maybe it's the script that isn't good. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just, and maybe you can comment on if you saw what I saw when I'm watching this guy act. I'm like, I don't know. This seems like a local school production, local theater production to me.
Well, I want you to get all the way through your notes before I go too far.
Okay.
So
I did love the note of special appearance by Season Hubley. Because that's what I said. I'm like,
that's what I said. Yeah.
It'd be different if it's special appearance by, I don't know, Jamie Lee Curtis. That would have made sense. Who, by the way, Jamie Lee Curtis was the voiceover. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah.
But you would know Season Hubley, Gary. Let me tell you why you would know Season Hubley, because I looked it up.
Okay.
This is what kept me awake at night. She had made appearances in The Partridge Family, Kojak, and Starsky and Hutch, as well as some soap operas. So when they say special appearance, I think it was being kind of generous, because I don't know who the hell she is. No knock to you, Season Hubley. I know you're still alive. She later went on to marry Kurt Russell, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, after the film, they married in 1979. So wait, she would have married before. I'm sorry.
Maybe that's why that's a special appearance.
That's the special appearance, because it's called nepotism.
And it probably should be maybe redacted to be appearance by.
Yeah, appearance by Kurt Russell's wife.
It's not so special, but anyway.
And yeah, in case you wondered who she was, Gary, she was the girl in the Chock Full of Nuts coffee shop.
Yeah, I saw that because I was like, who is this special appearance? I don't recognize the name, and then of course I saw the part of it, but
that's also
recognize her. But
after their honeymoon, that's how he referred to her, as chock full of nuts. Oh,
hey yo,
edit. What else I got? Of course, this was after Carpenter's success of Halloween, so he had a little juice in Hollywood, and he got this film made. Because when he originally pitched it, nobody wanted to make the film. They thought it was too bleak, and it kind of is. I don't disagree with that, but that's okay.
He got a little juice and then proceeded to inject it into Harry Dean Stanton. Anyway,
I love how the film is, and again, this is part of what I enjoy when we go back and watch these films, because this was set in the futuristic, violent, dystopian world of 1997.
Right.
I'm okay if you want to make Manhattan a prison. I have no use for that, so that's fine with me. That doesn't bother me. But I do love how
Manhattan viewers out there.
Yeah, for the one viewer we got from Manhattan, I apologize. But I do like how in 1997, the future, all the vehicles still look the same as they would in 1981, including the helicopters. But people have these giant face shields on, so that's how you know you're in the future. Not that we have. Again, this is after Star Wars had been made, so it's not that we have hovercrafts and all kinds of. We just have helicopters and Jeeps and Cadillacs with chandeliers on the front of them. That's dystopian.
It's an interesting take.
I have a picture of that, by the way. We can add if we need to. I do like how when Snake's intake, when he was going into the prison, he's all just like, I'm tough, I'm bad to the bone. If you listen closely to the voiceover, it says you have the option to terminate and cremate now.
Attention, you are now entering the debarkation area. No talking, no smoking. Follow the orange line to the processing area. The next scheduled departure to the prison is in 2 hours. You now have the option to terminate and be cremated on the premises. If you elect this option, notify the duty sergeant in your processing area.
Yeah.
It's so hellish inside here. You could just go ahead and volunteer to die, and we'll save you the hellscape of Manhattan. He chose not to. Snake is bad to the bone. Of course, he walks in with guns and weapons and whatnot. I love
lose most of them quickly.
Yeah, I love the escape pod for Air Force One. Looks like a giant egg.
Yeah.
Think that's what we shoot our president again in the future. That's what we use. We use borrowed a set piece from Mork and Mindy. I thought it was again. We're after the fact. It's haunting to watch a plane crash into a building in New York City.
Yeah.
After 9/11, because you're like, oh man, that kind of foreshadows something.
Mhm.
Speaking of foreshadowing, Gary, I thought this is interesting in today's climate. When he gets the jab in the side of the neck, right, and they input the microchips that could explode his arteries and kill him. I was like, interesting, because that's how some people think the COVID jab is now. So,
Hey, that's why I'm avoiding it. I don't want to.
Gary doesn't want his microchips.
I don't want to.
But I thought that was interesting. I was like, in 1981, someone thought that this is a potentially interesting way to kill somebody by, popping up your arteries there and bleeding out inside. And my last note is again you're looking at the future. This is the wild, wild west of the future of 1997. It's good to know we're still using cassette tapes in 1997.
Hell yeah.
We had not moved on to any other form of holding data.
At that point in time, I don't think they could envision.
Well, CDs weren't even out.
Where we would go.
But again,
it was tape.
I say this, Gary, because again, this is after Star Wars. So remember, we had droids, and she could record into the droid.
Yeah.
You're our only hope, Obi-Wan. Lucas had at least more foresight to go, just use a cassette tape. No one's ever going to think that's out of date. Why would cassettes ever go out of date? Ever. Technology will never advance past this.
Is that your last note?
I'm done.
Okay. He's spent. All right, but look, I didn't write any notes. I just had a few things
it, Gary. Defend it.
I can only defend so much. I will say, first of all, some of the actors in here we already mentioned. Lee Van Cleef, well known for a lot of spaghetti westerns. Kind of one of those old Hollywood guard. That's kind of one of the badasses of the day. Ernest Borgnine, war movies, probably westerns. I'm guessing. I can't recall off the top of my head. Donald Pleasance, which was
who I love.
President. Isaac Hayes. So
man.
Made an appearance.
Check this out right there.
There you go. Yeah, with the chandelier.
Tell me that screamed the future.
It does. It does. Because
because you got headlights.
I'm actually considering having that anyway. Harry Dean Stanton, as we mentioned, and a fascination for me as a child, Adrian Barbeau.
Oh yes.
So I'm sure that was anyway. I did note also that there are two characters names that I thought were interesting, which was Cronenberg and Romero. I didn't. There are two characters.
I did not catch that, but I do like that. Now that you pointed out.
So real quick. So that's my only real notes, other than to say that when I started this movie, I have not seen this movie since, as we've discussed multiple times, on TV. That is my last real recollection of seeing this movie. And while I like John Carpenter movies, I went into this kind of wondering, how is the effects and everything going to play out when it's a movie from way back then, and with what they're going for. And I will say, this is kind of weird that the artwork, the poster shows the head of the Statue of Liberty, which is, if you go back to your picture, is still attached. So I don't know why that's apart.
Yeah,
I don't know why that's on the poster or anything. It has nothing to do with anything, other than the fact that they have their base of operations for the security of the prison is at the Statue of Liberty. But other than that, I couldn't figure it out. So what I was more conscious of watching this time was really effects kind of stuff, because I was like, how did he pull this off back then? And I found myself getting more caught up in that than really the story too much. I will say that I like, there's a lot of cool stuff about them. First of all, I'm a big Kurt Russell fan. I just think that I really like just about everything I've ever seen him in.
Yeah.
And I think he plays this character really well. Little cheesy at times with the talking like that, but he
said he was going for a Clint Eastwood effect, which I think that's a fair Dirty Harry.
Hearing the other choices that you mentioned earlier, I was like, ooh, I couldn't imagine any of them playing this
I mean,
role.
again, maybe Chuck Norris, maybe.
Maybe, but I think Kurt Russell's just got a
I
much
think he's a
more
better.
charismatic. Not that no knock on Chuck Norris, but for this particular film, I don't know. I just can't picture somebody else in it. I guess might be weird if it was the other way around, and I'd be going, why Kurt Russell? That would be weird. But so there was a lot of it and there's a few notes in the movie where I recalled it as a kid, but most of it I couldn't remember. So seeing it again was like, well, I'm reliving some of this, and there's some really dumb things that happen in it. But to me, it gets back to reliving that time period. And so as I'm watching it, I have this nostalgic feeling as I'm watching it, and
Yeah.
it's returning to those vibes I felt as a kid and watching these kind of movies. And just I was such a sucker for sci-fi and action movies and stuff when I was a kid that like I was getting into it. There's a little lull, maybe 2/3 of the way through the movie, that kind of was starting to lose me. But for the most part, I actually enjoyed it watching it again. Do I think it's a great movie? Absolutely not. Definitely not Carpenter's best. But I thought it was really, to me, the effects of the movie too, other than seeing the plane thing, there's a few shots of the plane that look absolutely ridiculous. But for the most part, whatever practical effects he was using, I thought came off very well. And having the city there at night probably made a lot of that. Oh, thank you for putting that on there, because that is something I wanted to mention.
Do you think the Omega Race
We'll get
effect
back.
or the
I'll come back
Tempest,
to that.
the
I'll come
Tempest
back.
look?
But seeing the copters flying towards the city, having a wall and stuff in some,
Yeah.
I was like, it actually looks fairly convincing.
Yeah.
Not the little or with the glider or whatever he was in.
Superimposed on a screen.
One of the things that I absolutely did dislike was exactly what you're showing there. I probably would have forgot it if you hadn't shown that.
Yeah.
The fact that was, I remember a tank. Yeah, I'm thinking about Atari games from back in
That's
the day.
it. I was drawing. What game is it?
There's that one tank game that reminded me a lot of those, polygonal things, and they're using that as if that's like their sensors and stuff, and they're looking at, and I'm sure part of that was, hey, we've got the ability to use this to replace it with trying to do something with filming where it would have been an issue.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like probably a smarter cop out for trying to make some of that stuff in a different way, with miniatures or something like that. But that besides the cassette thing, besides the vehicles, this was another thing that terribly dated the movie. It made it really, in fact, the other thing, and I'm glad you put that one up too, because it says nose view.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious that you can clearly see what you're looking at in all of the shots.
Yeah.
But there'd always be that little label to let you know, down view. Just as as you're looking at the buildings kind of passing by, it's like, this is the down view. It's like, no shit.
I got that.
So,
because remember, it's the future.
Yeah. But I thought it'd be interesting to see like a new take on this. And I know there was Escape from LA. Not too long ago.
I agree with you. I would love to see this rewritten and reshot. I think the idea is good. I'm not. I think the script was. I didn't sit and focus on the writing because it's an action film. I just would like to see. I'd love to see a modern version of this. And I'm first one to gripe about Hollywood remaking old films. Like, Jesus, just do something original. But this is a good idea.
It's one that could be executed in a much better fashion now. I know that goes back on the effects thing that I've mentioned in the past, but it's even the little things, and then the updating it. I think this is one that could be updated a lot better, and could maybe take the storyline and add some, more forethought with how the future could play out and stuff. But yeah, it'd be interesting. I would. This is one that I wouldn't mind seeing a remake of.
This will be our first Flick Flops Cult Classics script project that Gary and I will rewrite.
We're gonna rewrite Escape
and submit to Hollywood and say, "Look,
officially it."
This is it. I'm throwing down the gauntlet, Gary.
All right. Well, let's just let's close this out by confirming whether we are or are not cult members of this film. And Andy, I already know where you're going to land, but let's go ahead and see it officially.
Yeah, I will say I'm not a cult member of this one. I'll probably never watch this movie again.
So this
in regards to our other podcast, we do rankings, Gary. I mean, I would have given this a 3.
Okay.
I don't think it's horrible, but it's not good. My brother, the Great Chainsaw, would love this movie. Yeah, man. So that's my barometer. If my brother would think it was great, man. Hey, man. But I also read another review, and I'm paraphrasing, where the person said, if you want to see a better version, a representation of a dystopian rundown New York City, watch The Warriors.
Yeah.
It was more realistic, and I would agree with that. But again, this is a different idea. This is where Manhattan is an actual prison.
Yeah.
So, but I agree with what they're saying.
2 notes. First of all, let me go ahead and throw mine in here. I will say that. Remember, and here's why. I would watch it again. Now, I don't know. It wouldn't be anytime soon. But I could see me wanting to revisit this at some point in the future. Just kind of have that same feeling that I had, for being a kid. And I
get that.
So I'm not going to say the movie's great again. There's so many flaws and problems, which most of them Andy pointed out. There's probably more that we missed, but but there's that. I will say this kind of struck me as funny. So I saw my parents this weekend, and they were like, "Which movies are you doing next?" Because my dad is not a fan of horror movies, so he's like, they don't watch the ones that are.
He's not watching Terrifier.
He's not watching Terrifier 2. But I said we were doing Escape from New York, and he was like, "Yeah, it's a terrible movie," which I thought was funny. But what he said was, he goes, "But you know what? I was thinking about that movie the other day." He was like, "I was thinking about the current state of things and how, like, people are trying to get out of New York right now with the stuff going on. Don't want to get political or anything, but then there's people escaping New York right now." And I was like, "Yeah, it's funny too, because the sequel to that, Dad, is Escape from LA, and there's a lot of people going out of there too."
Dude.
So if anything, the title's still valid anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Carpenter was he foresaw the future a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you get that many people congested in an area. I mean, you're just gonna have problems when you can't have a circle of like 5 or 6 friends without somebody being a pain in the ass at some point. So I'm not pointing.
And if you don't recognize who the pain in the ass is,
it's me.
It might be.
All right.
I mean, just real quick, I same thing. There's older films that I like to watch. We've talked about older films that, I know they're crap, but they take me back to and I totally get that. This just isn't one that I have any fond memories of as a child. And I'm not a huge sci-fi fan,
right?
Because I always, and it's a flaw in me. I always want to nitpick what they think the future is, and then of course when you've lived past what they think the future is, and I was alive in '97, and I was like, that is not even close to what 19. There was 0 chandeliers on cars in '97. I will tell you that much.
I don't know. You can't say 0.
Now this year we did see a lot of in 1981 playing video games at Aladdin's Castle.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's when you said tank, I couldn't remember the one dude. I was researching. Looked at my Google history, classic '80s video games.
Yeah.
Tempest was the closest I came with that look, but you're right. It was a tank game.
Yeah.
So I hope that
I don't remember the name of it, but yeah.
I hope that you can find the graphic and throw it up real quick.
I will hopefully have that.
But that's it, buddy.
Yep. All right. Well, everybody, let us know what you think of doing Cult Classics. We are enjoying kind of going back in time and revisiting some of these films that a lot of people enjoy. and just reliving our childhood to a degree. But what do you think about it? Let us know, and like, comment, subscribe, and give us your thoughts. We appreciate it. Take care.
Yay!
Peace.
This has been a Touch of Madness production, brought to you by the creative minds at Tommy Twins Media.